I stood in our kitchen, Christmas lights twinkling softly behind me, when my husband of 12 years said the words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about our marriage. "Sarah's coming to Christmas dinner," he announced, not even looking up from his phone. "She's going through a rough time, and I thought it would be nice." Sarah, his ex-girlfriend, the woman he almost married before me, and he wanted her at our table with our children on the most sacred day of our year. I remember my hand freezing mid-stir over the pot of mulled wine, the cinnamon stick slipping from my fingers into the dark red liquid below. The kitchen suddenly felt too warm, too bright, too small. I turned to look at him, really look at him. This man I had built a life with, given everything to, and I saw a stranger sitting at our breakfast bar, scrolling through his phone like he'd just suggested we buy a different brand of coffee. "You what?" My voice came out quieter than I intended, almost a whisper, but there was something sharp underneath it, something dangerous that even I didn't recognize. "Sarah," he repeated, finally glancing up with those blue eyes that used to make my heart race. Now they just made me feel cold. "She's been having a really hard time since her divorce finalized. She reached out to me last week, and I've been trying to support her through it. I figured having her here for Christmas would show her that she's not alone." Last week? He'd been talking to her for a week and hadn't mentioned it once. 7 days of conversations, messages, probably phone calls, and I'd been completely in the dark, making Christmas cookies with our daughters, wrapping presents, planning the perfect family holiday. "Marcus," I said slowly, setting down the wooden spoon with deliberate care, "you've been talking to your ex-girlfriend behind my back, and now you want to invite her to our family Christmas dinner." He had the audacity to look annoyed. "It's not behind your back, Emma. I'm telling you now, and she's not just my ex, she's an old friend. We dated over 15 years ago. It's ancient history." Ancient history. As if time could erase the fact that he'd proposed to her first, that she'd been his first love, his first everything. That he'd cried on our 3rd date when he finally told me about her, about how she'd left him to pursue her career in New York, how he'd been devastated for years. "Our daughters will be here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My parents are coming, your mother will be here, and you want to seat your ex-girlfriend at our table." "Why are you being so insecure about this?" He stood up now, walking toward me with that expression he wore when he thought I was being unreasonable, that mixture of patience and condescension that had started appearing more and more over the past year. "Sarah is going through a divorce. She's vulnerable and alone. I thought you, of all people, would understand compassion." Compassion. He was using my own values, my own kindness, as a weapon against me. This was the man who'd promised to love and cherish me, who'd held my hand through 2 difficult pregnancies, who'd sworn that I was his everything, his forever. But standing there in that warm kitchen with Christmas just 3 days away, I realized something that made my blood run cold. I didn't know this man anymore. Or maybe I never really had. "Fine," I heard myself say, "invite her." The surprise on his face was almost comical. "Really?" "Yes," I said, turning back to the stove, my hands trembling as I gripped the counter. "If it's that important to you, invite Sarah to Christmas dinner." He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, kissed my neck. "Thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand. This is why I love you. You have such a big heart." I stood there, rigid in his embrace, staring at the pot of mulled wine, and said nothing. Because what I was thinking, what I was planning, couldn't be spoken out loud. Not yet. He had no idea what was coming next. That night, after Marcus fell asleep beside me, I lay in the darkness with my eyes wide open, listening to him breathe, this stranger in my bed. The Christmas lights from outside cast soft shadows across our ceiling, the same ceiling we'd painted together 8 years ago when we'd moved into this house, when we'd still laughed together, when he'd still looked at me like I was his whole world. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, the blue light harsh in the darkness, and opened the messaging app I rarely used anymore. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before I typed a single name: David. My hands were shaking. I hadn't spoken to David in over a decade, not since I'd broken his heart to be with Marcus. David, who'd loved me completely, who'd wanted to marry me, who'd begged me not to leave when I'd met Marcus at that work conference and felt that stupid, chemical, irresistible attraction that I'd mistaken for destiny. I stared at his name and my contacts list, this ghost from my past, and something inside me cracked open. Not desire, I'd buried those feelings long ago. But a bitter, aching curiosity. What would Marcus think if his ex wasn't the only ghost at our Christmas table? But I didn't send the message. Instead, I deleted the draft and set down my phone, disgusted with myself. This wasn't who I was. I didn't play games. I didn't manipulate. I was Emma Hartley, mother of 2, dedicated wife, elementary school teacher, the woman who baked cookies for her neighbors and volunteered at the homeless shelter every Thanksgiving. Except that woman had been slowly disappearing for the past year, and I hadn't even noticed until this moment. I thought back to March, when Marcus had started coming home late from work, claiming important projects, big clients, career-defining deals. I'd believed him because I'd wanted to believe him, because doubt was uncomfortable and our life was comfortable. Our house was beautiful, our daughters were thriving, our social media feed was perfect. I remembered June, when he'd started going to the gym obsessively, losing weight, buying new clothes. Midlife health kick, he'd joked, and I'd supported him, proud of his dedication, ignoring the new cologne, the extra attention to his hair. I thought about September, when he'd become glued to his phone, smiling at messages, typing rapidly, then looking up with a guilty expression when he caught me watching. Just work stuff, he'd say, always work stuff. And now, December and Sarah. Beautiful, successful, newly single Sarah, who'd broken his heart all those years ago, who he'd never quite gotten over, who was apparently so important that he'd risk his marriage to play her savior. I turned my head on the pillow to look at him sleeping peacefully, his face relaxed, his breathing even. Did he know what he was doing? Was this calculated, or was he really that oblivious to how this would hurt me? The next morning, I woke up with a plan. Not revenge. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in truth. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before Christmas dinner arrived. I waited until Marcus left for work, until our daughter's Emma Jr. Yes, he'd insisted on nomming her after me. The irony wasn't lost on me now, and Lily were at school. Then I opened his laptop, the one he left at home, the one he thought I didn't know the password to. But I did know it. It was Sarah 1989. The year they'd met. He'd been using variations of it for years, and I'd pretended not to notice, pretended not to care that his passwords always somehow circled back to her. My hands trembled as the screen unlocked. I'd never snooped before, never violated his privacy, and the shame of it sat heavy in my chest. But heavier still was the fear, the knowing that something was terribly wrong, that the foundation of my entire life was crumbling beneath me. I opened his email first. Nothing suspicious. Work correspondence, shopping confirmations, newsletters. Then I tried his messaging apps, but they were connected to his phone, which was with him. Finally, I checked his browser history, and there it was. Pages and pages of Facebook messages to Sarah, going back not 1 week but 6 months. 6 months of daily conversations. Thinking about you. You were always the one who understood me. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if you'd stayed. I miss what we had. My vision blurred. The words swam on the screen. I wanted to close the laptop, to unsee it, to go back to 10 minutes ago when I could still pretend. But I kept reading. Her responses were careful at first, friendly but distant. But gradually, over months, they warmed. I miss you too. My marriage fell apart because he wasn't you. Do you ever think about us? I made the biggest mistake of my life when I left. And then, 3 weeks ago, everything changed. I'm getting divorced. It's final next month. I can't stop thinking about what could have been. His response, sent at 2 in the morning while I'd been sleeping next to him, "Come home, come back to Boston. Let me help you through this. I need to see you." And her reply, "I'm already looking at flights. I need you, Marcus. I've always needed you." I slammed the laptop shut, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might vomit. This wasn't just old friends reconnecting. This wasn't compassion for someone going through a hard time. This was an affair, maybe not physical yet, but emotional, which somehow felt worse because it meant his heart was already gone. I sat there in our home office, surrounded by family photos on the walls, our wedding day, the girls as Bobbies, vacations and holidays, and all the moments I'd thought were building toward forever. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. I wasn't going to cancel Christmas dinner or throw Sarah out. I was going to let this play out exactly as Marcus wanted, because he needed to see what he was destroying. They both did. I opened my phone and started making calls. First, I called my sister Rachel, the only person in the world I trusted completely. "I need you to come for Christmas," I said without preamble, "and I need you to bring Michael." Rachel, bless her, didn't ask questions. She just said, "We'll be there, whatever you need." Then I called David. My hand shook as I dialed the number I'd kept all these years, buried in my contacts under D. Patterson, so Marcus would never question it. He answered on the third ring. "Emma." His voice was deeper than I remembered, rougher but still warm. "Emma Hartley, or is it still Hartley?" "It's still Hartley," I said softly. "How are you, David?" "Shocked to hear from you after 12 years, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice but also the wariness. "What's going on? Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. "I need a favor, a strange one, and I need you not to ask too many questions." There was a pause, then, "Name it." "I need you to come to Christmas dinner at my house. I need you to pretend we've recently reconnected. I need you to be charming and friendly and act like we're old friends catching up." The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, "Emma, what's happening? Is he hurting you?" "Not physically," I whispered, and my voice cracked. "David, I need this. Please, I'll explain everything later, I promise. But right now, I need someone on my side, and you're the only person I can think of who would understand." Another pause. "I'm married now, Emma, happily married. I have 2 kids." My heart sank. "Oh God, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." "But," he interrupted, "my wife is incredibly understanding, and she knows all about you, about us. And if you need help, if you're in some kind of trouble, we'll be there. Both of us. She'll want to meet you anyway, I've told her enough stories." Tears slipped down my cheeks. Thank you so much." "What time should we arrive?" I gave him the details, my voice steadier now, and when we hung up, I sat in that office for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling everything. The next 2 days passed in a blur of Christmas preparations that felt like preparing for battle. I baked and cooked and cleaned with a manic energy that my daughters noticed, but didn't question. Marcus, oblivious or choosing to be oblivious, complimented me on how beautiful the house looked, how amazing everything smelled, how lucky he was to have such a wonderful wife. Each compliment felt like a knife. On Christmas Eve morning, as I was stuffing the turkey, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello." "Emma Hartley," a woman's voice, smooth and professional. "Yes." "This is Sarah Beckman, Marcus's friend. I wanted to call and thank you personally for allowing me to join your Christmas celebration. I know it must seem strange, and I want you to know how much I appreciate your generosity." I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles white. "Of course, Sarah, any friend of Marcus's is welcome in our home." "He's told me so much about you," she continued, and I could hear something in her voice, pity maybe, or triumph. "About your girls, about your life together. You seem like an amazing woman." "Marcus has told me almost nothing about you," I replied sweetly. "He mentioned you were going through a divorce. I'm sorry to hear that." A beat of silence. "Yes, well, sometimes things don't work out the way we plan. Sometimes we realize we married the wrong person." The audacity of it stole my breath. She wasn't even trying to hide it. "I suppose that's true," I said carefully. "Though I like to think that the right people find each other eventually, one way or another." "I like to think that too." Her voice was warm now, almost friendly, as if we were 2 women bonding over shared wisdom instead of circling each other like predators. "I'll see you tomorrow, Emma, and thank you again. This means more than you know." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there with the phone in my hand, the half-stuffed turkey in front of me, and something inside me went cold and hard and unbreakable. They thought I was a fool. A kind, generous, naive fool who would smile and serve dinner while they flirted across the table, while Marcus chose her in front of everyone, while my entire life imploded. But they were wrong. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and bright sunshine, the kind of perfect winter day that belonged on greeting cards. The girls woke up early, excited about presents and cookies for breakfast and the knowledge that family would be arriving soon. Marcus was in high spirits, singing along to Christmas carols as he set up extra chairs in the dining room. He came into the kitchen, where I was making cranberry sauce, and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Merry Christmas, my beautiful wife," he murmured against my neck. "Have I told you lately how much I love you?" I stirred the cranberries, watching them pop and burst in the boiling sugar water. "You used to tell me every day. You haven't said it in months." He tensed. "That's not true." "It is true, Marcus, but it's fine. Actions speak louder than words, right?" He pulled away, and when I glanced over my shoulder, his expression was troubled. Good. Let him be troubled. Let him feel even a fraction of what I'd been feeling. The doorbell rang at 2 o'clock. My parents arrived first, then Marcus's mother, then Rachel and Michael with their 3 kids. The house filled with noise and laughter and the chaos of family, and for a few moments, I could almost pretend everything was normal. Then the doorbell rang again. Marcus practically leaped to answer it, and I watched from the kitchen doorway as he opened the door to reveal Sarah. She was beautiful. Not beautiful in an obvious way, but beautiful in that effortless, sophisticated way that came from money and good genes and a life spent being looked at. Tall and slim in an elegant cream sweater and designer jeans, her dark hair falling in perfect waves, her smile warm and genuine as she handed Marcus a bottle of expensive wine. "Merry Christmas," she said, and he pulled her into a hug that lasted 3 seconds too long. My mother appeared at my elbow. "Who is that?" she whispered. "Marcus's ex-girlfriend," I said quietly. "He invited her." My mother's sharp intake of breath was satisfying. "He what?" "It's fine, Mom, really." I squeezed her hand. "Just trust me, everything is going to be fine." I walked forward to greet Sarah, my smile bright and welcoming. "Sarah, so glad you could make it. Come in, please, let me take your coat." Up close, she was even more striking, with dark eyes that assessed me quickly, taking in my holiday sweater, deliberately chosen, red cashmere, not cheap, but not designer either, my minimal makeup, my practical ponytail. I could see her relaxing slightly, categorizing me as non-threatening, just as I'd intended. "Emma, your home is gorgeous," she said warmly, "and something smells incredible." "Just Christmas dinner," I replied. "Nothing special. Marcus, could you get Sarah a drink? I need to check on the turkey." I retreated to the kitchen, aware of them standing close in the living room, aware of how easily they fell into conversation, how Marcus laughed at something she said, how my mother-in-law's expression had gone stiff with confusion. Rachel found me basting the turkey. What the hell is going on?" "Not now," I murmured, "but soon. Is David here yet?" "Who's David?" The doorbell rang again. I dried my hands, smoothed my sweater, and walked through the living room to answer it. I could feel Marcus's eyes on me, curious now, slightly suspicious. I opened the door to reveal David, older now, his sandy hair touched with gray at the temples, his shoulders broader, his face marked with the years that had passed since we'd last seen each other. Next to him stood a pretty Asian woman with kind eyes and a genuine smile, and between them, 2 children bundled in winter coats. "Emma," David said softly, and the way he said my name, with all that history and tenderness and old pain behind it, made my throat tight. "David?" I pulled him into a hug, felt his arms wrap around me carefully, respectfully. "Thank you for coming. You have no idea what this means to me." "Anything for you," he murmured. "You know that." I pulled back and smiled at his wife. "You must be Jennifer. David has told me so much about you." She laughed. "All lies, I'm sure. It's wonderful to finally meet you, Emma. David speaks about you often, always fondly." "Emma," Marcus's voice came from behind me, sharp with confusion. "Who is this?" I turned, my hand still on David's arm. "Marcus, this is David Patterson. We dated before I met you. You might remember me mentioning him once or twice. We recently reconnected on social media and discovered we both live in Boston now. When I heard you were inviting an old friend for Christmas, I thought it would be lovely to do the same. David, this is my husband, Marcus." The look on Marcus's face was priceless. Shock, confusion, something that might have been jealousy. He recovered quickly, extending his hand, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Of course, nice to meet you, David, and your family." Likewise, David said evenly, shaking his hand with just a touch more firmness than necessary. Emma speaks very highly of you. You're a lucky man. I know I am, Marcus replied, his eyes finding mine, questioning, accusing. I smiled sweetly. Why don't we all come in? It's freezing out there. Dinner is almost ready. The next hour was a masterclass in tension that only a few of us could feel. To the children and most of the adults, it was a normal, if slightly crowded, Christmas dinner. But at the table, the currents ran deep and dangerous. I'd arranged the seating carefully. Marcus at the head of the table with Sarah to his right, close and intimate. Me at the other end with David to my left, equally close. Rachel across from me, watching with sharp, protective eyes. My parents and in-laws spread throughout, oblivious to the chess match happening around them. The food was perfect, I'd made sure of that. The turkey was golden and juicy, the sides were magazine-worthy, the wine flowed freely. Conversation ebbed and flowed around topics safe and familiar, the weather, the girls' school activities, upcoming plans. But underneath, the real conversation was happening in glances and loaded comments. Emma, this meal is incredible, Sarah said warmly. Marcus told me you were an amazing cook, but this is restaurant quality. Thank you, I replied. I've had years of practice, 12 years of making Christmas dinner actually. Though I wonder if Marcus even remembers the first one. We were so broke we could only afford a chicken, not a turkey. Do you remember that, honey? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Of course I remember. That's longer than some marriages last, David observed casually, his hand resting near mine on the table. Emma always did have staying power. Commitment was one of her strongest qualities. Once she loves someone, she's all in. I felt Marcus's eyes on me, hot and angry now. How long were you two together? Sarah asked David, her tone light but her eyes calculating. 3 years, David said, and then with perfect, deliberate timing, I wanted to marry her, had the ring picked out and everything, but she met Marcus and well. He shrugged, his smile rueful but kind. When you know, she knew it was him. I respected that even though it hurt like hell. The silence at our end of the table was deafening. Jennifer, David's wife, squeezed his hand supportively, her expression sympathetic. That must have been difficult, Sarah said quietly, and something in her voice suggested she understood rejection intimately. It was, David agreed. But everything works out the way it's supposed to, right? I found Jennifer, we have our beautiful kids. Emma built this amazing life with Marcus. Sometimes the person we think is our forever is just our right now, preparing us for what's actually meant to be. Marcus's jaw was tight. Or sometimes people make choices they regret. Sometimes they let the right person go because they were scared or immature or chasing something that didn't matter. He was looking at Sarah when he said it. She was looking back at him. And I was watching both of them, my heart breaking and hardening simultaneously. Well, I said brightly, standing up, who wants pie? I made 3 kinds, apple, pumpkin, and Marcus's favorite pecan. As I walked to the kitchen, I heard David say conversationally, Emma told me she makes your favorite pie every year. Every single year for 12 years, even though she doesn't particularly like pecans herself. That's devotion, isn't it? I didn't hear Marcus's response because I'd reached the kitchen, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. I gripped the counter, my carefully constructed composure cracking, tears burning behind my eyes. Rachel appeared beside me instantly. Talk to me. They're in love, I whispered. Or they think they are. He's been talking to her for months, emotional affair at minimum. And she came here tonight, to my home on Christmas, knowing exactly what she's doing. That bitch, Rachel hissed. And David, that gorgeous man out there who's looking at you like you hung the moon. Is helping me, I said. He's married, happily married, and he's here because I called him and asked him to show Marcus what it looks like when someone actually values me. Oh, honey, Rachel pulled me into her arms. What are you going to do? I'm going to serve pie, I said, pulling away and wiping my eyes. And then I'm going to tell the truth, all of it, in front of everyone, because I'm done pretending, Rachel. I'm done being the understanding wife, the compassionate friend, the woman who accepts being second choice in her own marriage. Are you sure, once you do this, there's no going back? I looked at her, my baby sister, the one person who'd always believed in me. There's already no going back. He made sure of that when he invited her here. He just doesn't know it yet. We brought out the pies, served them with fresh whipped cream and coffee, and the conversation continued. The children, finished eating, ran off to play with new toys. The adults lingered at the table, comfortable and full, the wine making everyone warm and loose. That's when Marcus made his mistake. "You know," he said, his voice carrying that particular tone of wine-induced nostalgia, "Sarah and I were just reminiscing about the Christmas we spent in Vermont back before we broke up. Remember that, Sarah? We stayed in that tiny cabin, got snowed in for 3 days." Sarah's eyes went soft. "How could I forget? We made snow angels in the morning and sat by the fire at night. It was magical." The table had gone quiet. My mother's expression was horrified. Marcus's mother looked confused and upset. Rachel was staring at Marcus like she wanted to reach across the table and strangle him. And me, I felt nothing, just a vast, empty coldness. "That does sound magical," I said calmly. "David, do you remember the Christmas before we broke up? We volunteered at that homeless shelter, serving meals. You said it was the best Christmas you'd ever had." David, understanding the moment perfectly, nodded. "It was, because I was with you. You taught me that Christmas wasn't about perfect moments in perfect places. It was about showing up for people who needed you, about being present, about choosing to love through action, not just words." He wasn't talking to Marcus, but everyone heard the message. Marcus's face flushed red. "Emma, what exactly is this? Why did you really invite him here?" I set down my fork very carefully. "For the same reason you invited Sarah, darling, to have old friends at our Christmas table. To share this special day with people from our past who meant something to us. Isn't that what you said? That it's just old friends, ancient history, nothing to worry about." "That's different." "How is it different?" My voice was still calm, still level, but something in it made everyone at the table go still. "How is you inviting the woman you proposed to first, the woman you've been messaging for 6 months, the woman who told you she made a mistake leaving you and wants you back? How is that different from me inviting a man who wanted to marry me? A man who would have put me first every single day for the rest of my life?" Marcus's face went white. "Emma, you thought I wouldn't know," I continued, standing now, my hands flat on the table. "You thought I was too trusting, too naive, too busy with the kids and my teaching job to notice. But I know everything, Marcus, every message, every 'I miss you', every 'you were the one', every lie you told me while you were building a fantasy with her." Sarah had gone pale too. "Emma, we weren't." "You weren't what?" I looked at her directly for the first time with no pretense. "You weren't trying to get my husband back. You weren't messaging him at 2 in the morning, telling him he was the love of your life. You weren't planning to move back to Boston to be near him. Please, Sarah, don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else." "Mom," Emma Jr.'s small voice came from the doorway. She was standing there with Lily, both of them in their Christmas dresses, both looking scared and confused. "Why are you yelling?" And just like that, my anger collapsed into grief. These Bobbies. These innocent girls who didn't ask for any of this, who deserved parents who kept their promises, who deserved a home that felt safe. I walked to them, knelt down, pulled them both into my arms. "I'm sorry, sweethearts. Mom got upset about something. Why don't you go upstairs and watch a movie? I'll come tuck you in soon." "Is Daddy in trouble?" Lily whispered. "Daddy and I need to have an adult conversation," I said softly. "But everything's going to be okay, I promise." Rachel appeared to herd them upstairs, and I stood, turning back to face the table. Everyone was frozen, my parents looking devastated, Marcus's mother dabbing tears, David and Jennifer preparing to leave, Michael standing protective behind his wife. And Marcus and Sarah, sitting there like children caught doing something they knew was wrong. "I need everyone who doesn't live in this house to leave," I said quietly. "Except Marcus, you're not going anywhere, we're finishing this." The exodus was quick and uncomfortable. My mother hugged me tightly, whispering, "We're here if you need us, anything." Marcus's mother tried to say something to him, but he wouldn't look at her. David paused at the door. "Emma," he said softly, "you deserved better than this, you always did." "I know," I whispered back. "Thank you for reminding me of that." When they were gone, it was just the 3 of us. Me, Marcus, and Sarah, standing in the wreckage of Christmas dinner, surrounded by half-eaten pie and cold coffee. "Both of you, sit down," my voice was steel. They sat. "I'm going to talk now, and you're both going to listen. And then you're going to tell me the truth, all of it, and we're going to figure out what happens next." I paced in front of them. This man I'd loved for 13 years, and this woman I'd never met until today, but who had haunted the edges of my marriage like a ghost. "Marcus, when you met me, you were still broken over Sarah. You told me on our third date, crying over wine at that Italian restaurant, that she'd destroyed you, that you'd never love anyone the same way. And like a fool, I thought I could heal you. I thought my love would be enough to make you forget her." He started to speak, but I held up my hand. "For years, I tried to be perfect. The perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect everything. I supported your career moves, even when they meant longer hours and less time with our family. I made our house a home. I raised our daughters while you climbed the corporate ladder. I put you first in every decision, every sacrifice, every single day." My voice cracked. "And you know what? I was happy doing it, because I thought we were building something together. I thought we were a team. I thought that when you looked at me, you saw your partner, your equal, your choice." "Emma, I do," Marcus tried again. "But I was wrong," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "I was always second place. Sarah was always there, between us, in the passwords you chose, in the way you'd go quiet when couples on TV broke up, in the way you'd scroll through Facebook late at night when you thought I was asleep. She was the ghost I could never compete with because ghosts are perfect. They never age, never gain weight, never nag you about leaving dishes in the sink or spending too much time at work. They're frozen in time at their best moment, before reality and mortgages and children complicate everything." I turned to Sarah. "And you left him. You chose your career, chose New York, chose ambition over love. That was your right. But coming back now, after your marriage failed, after you realized the grass wasn't greener, coming to claim him like he's been waiting in storage for you, that's not romantic. That's selfish. That's treating both of us like we're supporting characters in your story instead of real people with real lives and real pain." Sarah's eyes were red, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean, I was just so lost after my divorce, and Marcus was the only person who understood, and I got confused." "You got confused," I repeated flatly. "You got confused and decided to destroy my family. Marcus got confused and decided 13 years together meant less than 6 months of messages with his ex. And I'm supposed to what? Understand? Forgive? Be the bigger person." "Emma, please." Marcus stood, reaching for me, but I stepped back. "Nothing physical happened, I swear to you, we just talked. I was trying to be a friend to someone going through a hard time." "Bullshit," the word exploded out of me, and I saw him flinch. "Friends don't send, 'I miss you' messages at 2 a.m. Friends don't talk about alternate realities where they ended up together. Friends don't plan romantic Christmas dinners and invite their ex to their family table. You were having an emotional affair, Marcus. You gave her your heart, your emotional energy, your attention, all the things you stopped giving me. So don't you dare stand there and minimize this, because you technically kept your penis in your pants." The crudeness of it shocked him. Good, I wanted to shock him. I wanted him to see me, really see me, as something other than the understanding wife, the safe choice, the consolation prize. "What do you want me to say?" His voice broke. "That I fucked up. That I was an idiot, I was. That I took you for granted, I did. But Emma, I love you. I love our life, our daughters, everything we've built. She was just a fantasy. She wasn't real." "I'm standing right here," Sarah said quietly, and there was something broken in her voice too. "Yeah, you are," I said, looking at her. "And I want to hate you, but I can't. Because I look at you and I see someone who's lonely and sad and chasing something that doesn't exist anymore. The Marcus you remember, the young man who would have given up everything for you, he's gone. He grew up. He became a father, a husband, a man with responsibilities and mortgage payments and daughters who need braces. And even if you got him, even if he left me for you, he wouldn't be that person anymore. You'd just be chasing another ghost." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing now. I know, I'm so sorry. Everything fell apart and I panicked and he was there and you were both selfish," I finished. "You both chose temporary comfort over permanent damage. You both decided your feelings mattered more than my family's stability." I walked to the window, looking out at the snow falling softly in the darkness, the Christmas lights on the houses across the street twinkling cheerfully, oblivious to the devastation happening in this room. I thought about divorce, I said quietly, my back to them. I thought about lawyers and custody agreements and splitting our assets. I thought about being the wronged wife, the victim, the one who got sympathy and support and permission to hate you. I turned around, but then I realized something. This marriage has been dying slowly for a long time, not because of Sarah, she's just the symptom. It's been dying because we stopped choosing each other. You stopped seeing me, Marcus, and I stopped demanding to be seen. I made myself smaller and quieter and more accommodating, thinking that's what love was. But it's not. Love is supposed to be two whole people choosing each other every day, not one person disappearing while the other one looks for ghosts. What are you saying? Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. I'm saying I don't know if we can fix this, I said, and the words hurt coming out like swallowing glass. I'm saying I don't know if I want to, because even if Sarah wasn't in the picture, even if you never talk to her again, the damage is done. You showed me that I'm not enough for you, that there's a part of you that's always going to be looking elsewhere, wondering, what if, treating me like the safe choice instead of the choice. That's not true, he said desperately, moving toward me. Emma, you are the choice, you're my life. I was an idiot, but... Stop, I held up my hand. Sarah, you need to leave. Now, call an Uber, call a friend, I don't care, but you can't be here anymore. She nodded, standing shakily, grabbing her purse. At the door, she turned back. For what it's worth, Emma, he talks about you constantly, about how amazing you are, how lucky he is. I think I was jealous of that, of what you have, what I never got. Yeah, well, I said tiredly, be careful what you wish for. The fantasy is always better than the reality. When she was gone, it was just Marcus and me, standing in our dining room on Christmas night, 12 years of marriage hanging in the balance. What now? He asked. Now you sleep in the guest room, I said. And tomorrow, when the girls are at my parents' house, we're going to have a very long, very honest conversation about whether this marriage is worth saving. And Marcus, I need you to understand something. If we do try to fix this, if it's not going to be me earning my way back to being your first choice, it's going to be you proving to me that you're capable of keeping promises, of choosing me not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. You're going to have to do the work. Not me. I'm done sacrificing pieces of myself to hold this together. He was crying now, really crying, and part of me wanted to comfort him, to fall back into old patterns of caretaking and understanding. But I didn't. I stayed where I was, separate, alone, but finally whole. I'll do anything, he said. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want, just don't give up on us. I'm not the one who gave up on us, I said softly. You did that when you invited her here, when you thought I'd be too nice, too understanding, too eager to keep the peace to stand up for myself. You mistook my kindness for weakness, Marcus, and that's on you. I walked upstairs, past the room where Rachel was reading to the girls, past the guest room where Marcus would spend a lonely night, into our bedroom, my bedroom now, and I locked the door. Then I sat on the bed and let myself finally fall apart. The sobs came from somewhere deep and primal, 13 years of being second choice, of hopping and compromising and making myself smaller. I cried for the woman I'd been when I'd met Marcus, confident and whole, who'd given up David and a sure thing for chemistry and passion. I cried for the mother I'd become, who tried so hard to give her daughters a perfect family that she'd lost herself in the process. I cried for the marriage I'd thought I had, which maybe never existed at all, or maybe did once before it got buried under resentment and silence and ghosts. And then, when I had no tears left, I got up, washed my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 40-year-old woman with tired eyes and worry lines and gray hairs she kept meaning to color. But I also saw strength. I saw someone who'd stood up for herself finally, who'd chosen truth over comfort, who'd refused to play small anymore. The next morning, I woke to find Marcus had already left for a hotel, leaving a note that he'd give me space until I was ready to talk. The girls were confused, but accepting when I explained that Daddy needed to stay somewhere else for a little while, that grown-ups sometimes needed time to figure things out. Over the next weeks, we did talk. Hours and hours of painful, necessary conversations with a marriage counselor who didn't let either of us hide behind comfortable lies. Marcus had to face the reality that he'd been emotionally checked out long before Sarah reappeared, that he'd been coasting on autopilot, taking me and our family for granted. He had to confront his pattern of idealizing the past and devaluing the present. And I had to face my own part in the marriage's decline, not the affair, that was entirely on him, but the way I'd made myself so accommodating that I'd disappeared. The way I'd stopped asking for what I needed, stopped expecting to be prioritized, stopped believing I deserved to be someone's first choice. It was brutal work. Some days I thought we'd make it. Some days I was sure we wouldn't. Some days I hated him with an intensity that scared me. Some days I missed him so much I'd call just to hear his voice. 3 months after Christmas, on a cold March evening, we sat in the counselor's office, and she asked us the question we'd been avoiding. "Do you want to stay married?" Marcus looked at me, his eyes red from crying, from not sleeping, from carrying the weight of what he'd almost destroyed. "Yes, more than anything. I love you, Emma. I choose you. I will choose you every day for the rest of my life if you'll let me." And I looked at him, this man who'd hurt me so deeply, who'd broken my trust, who'd made me question everything I thought I knew about love and commitment. This man who was also the father of my children, who'd held my hand through my mother's cancer scare, who'd been my partner for 13 years of joy and sorrow and ordinary days. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't know if love is enough anymore. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. I don't know if the person I'm becoming can exist in this marriage, or if staying means going back to being small." "What if we created something new?" he said quietly. "Not the marriage we had before, we can't go back to that, but something different. Something where you're not small, where I show up, where we both choose this every day." "What if it's not enough?" I whispered. "What if we do all the work and it's still broken?" "Then at least we'll know we tried," he said. "At least our daughters will see that when something precious breaks, you don't just walk away, you fight to put it back together, even if it looks different, even if the cracks still show." I looked at our therapist, who was watching us with compassionate, knowing eyes. "What do you think?" "I think," she said carefully, "that you're both doing the hard work of being honest. And I think that whatever you decide, you'll survive. You're stronger than you know, Emma. Both of you are. But the question isn't whether you can save this marriage, it's whether you want to." Did I want to? I thought about David, about how his wife had looked at him with such trust and love, how they'd built something solid and sure without ghosts between them. I thought about being single at 40, starting over, dadding, co-parenting, splitting holidays. But I also thought about Marcus, about how he'd moved back home 2 weeks ago and got up every morning to make the girls breakfast, giving me time to sleep in. How he'd started reading the parenting books I'd been asking him to read for years. How he'd quit his job and found a new one with better hours, prioritizing family time over career advancement. How he'd sent Sarah a final message, which he'd shown me, telling her to never contact him again, that he'd made his choice and it was his family. Small things maybe, not enough to erase the damage, but something. "I want to try," I heard myself say. "But I need you to understand that trying doesn't mean I'm guaranteeing anything. It means we take it day by day. It means you earn back my trust through actions, not words. It means I get to be angry sometimes, to doubt sometimes, to need reassurance sometimes. And you don't get to be impatient with that or act like I should be over it." "I understand," he said, reaching for my hand across the space between us. "Whatever it takes, however long it takes." I let him take my hand, but I didn't squeeze back. Not yet. Because here's what I learned that terrible, transformative Christmas. Love isn't enough. Commitment isn't enough. History isn't enough. Marriage takes 2 whole people continually choosing each other, seeing each other, prioritizing each other. It takes honesty even when it's uncomfortable. It takes accountability when you mess up. It takes the courage to demand more than scraps and crumbs of attention and affection. 6 months later, we're still together, still working. The girls are happier with us both present and trying than they were with us both checked out and pretending. Marcus and I have date nights now, actual scheduled time where we talk and reconnect. I've started painting again, something I gave up when the girls were born. I've stopped making myself small. Is it perfect? No. Do I still have hard days where I remember everything and want to rage? Yes. Do I trust him completely? Not yet. Maybe never fully again. But we're building something new from the ruins of what broke. Something more honest, more intentional, more equal. I saw Sarah once a month ago at a coffee shop downtown. She looked good, lighter somehow, less desperate. She saw me, started to walk over, then stopped. We looked at each other across the crowded space, two women who'd both loved the same man in different ways at different times, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not jealousy, not triumph. Just a kind of distant sympathy for someone who'd learned the same hard lesson I had, that you can't build a future on fantasies. I nodded at her, she nodded back, and we both went on with our separate lives. As for David, he sent me a card a few weeks after Christmas. It said simply, "You're brave, you're strong, you deserve to be chosen. Every day, don't settle for less." I keep it in my drawer and look at it on hard days as a reminder. Because that's the thing about heartbreak. It doesn't kill you. It cracks you open, sure, leaves you raw and vulnerable and questioning everything. But if you're lucky, if you're strong, if you refuse to make yourself small in the name of keeping peace, it also shows you what you're made of. I'm made of something tougher than I thought. Something that can hold truth and pain and love and anger all at once. Something that can look at broken things and decide which ones are worth fixing and which ones need to be left behind. My marriage might make it might not, but either way, I'll be okay. Because the person I lost that Christmas wasn't Marcus. It was the version of me who believed that being chosen once meant being chosen forever. Who believed that sacrifice and accommodation were the same as love. Who believed that speaking up meant being difficult. I found her again in that moment when I stood up in front of everyone and told the truth. When I decided that my dignity mattered more than keeping peace. When I finally put myself first. And that person, she's here to stay. So if you're reading this, if you're in a marriage where you feel invisible, where you're always accommodating, always understanding, always making yourself smaller to fit into someone else's vision of partnership, please, hear me, you deserve more. You deserve to be someone's first choice, their priority, their partner. Not their backup plan, not their consolation prize, not their safe option while they fantasize about someone else. Demand more, expect more, and if you don't get it, have the courage to walk away. Because settling for crumbs when you deserve the whole feast doesn't make you kind or understanding or mature. It makes you complicit in your own diminishment. I learned that the hard way, on a Christmas when my husband invited his ex to dinner and had no idea what was coming next. What came next was me, choosing myself, finally. And that's the only happy ending I need.